telling Canadians that the problems they're facing with increased affordability, increased prices on everything, difficulty buying gas, difficulty buying computer, they've shrugged and said, oh, it's just inflation. Well, it's not just inflation. It is a focus that we have to have to continue to invest in Canadians. While telling Canadians that the and said, oh, it's just inflation, it's just inflation, oh, it's just inflation. And said, oh, it's just inflation. And said, oh, it's just inflation. Oh, it's just inflation. Well, it's not just inflation. It is a focus that we have to continue to invest in Canadians. Part of the recovery and creating jobs. I urge all members of this House to support its speedy passage.
Yes.
The honourable member for Carleton.
The minister's response was just incredible. He said, even after how just incredible.
Said, oh, it's just inflation.
Just incredible.
Said, oh, it's just inflation.
Just incredible. Even after house prices increased by a third, he didn't think about monetary policy. Even after gas prices hit $1.60 in some places, he didn't think about monetary policy. Even as CPI hit a 2-decade high, he didn't think much about monetary policy because he only thinks about himself. Won't he admit that what it took for him to start thinking about inflation is when we put his name in the word?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Speaker, from the very beginning, we have been focused on having Canadians back. Whether it was back in 2015 when we got elected on a promise to support the middle class and people working hard to join it after 10 years of conservative mismanagement, we have actually delivered for Canadians, whether it's on a housing strategy, whether it's on support for seniors, whether it's on support for families. Through this COVID pandemic, we've been there for them. Even though the member of Carleton kept saying we were doing too much for Canadians, we continued to step up and have their backs. That's exactly what we're going to continue to do, because Canadians deserve our support. They don't deserve conservative games.
Misrepresenting the inflation crisis, tell that to somebody in Kelowna today that's paying $1.67 a litre for gas.
Said, oh, it's just inflation. Said, oh, it's just inflation.
Just incredible. I can stop the speech on a moment's notice. If the Prime Minister were to walk in here now and just commit me to make two commitments come true. One, that he will balance the budget to bring down inflation and interest rates, and two, that he will cancel. They've been sucking up to big tactic for the last 8 years. What they want to do is shut down debate. Mr. Speaker, Canadians want the freedom to express themselves without government control.
Ask the honourable member to put his prop down, please.
Well, it's what we've been asking for months now. Trudeau should have called this half a year ago, but he's been covering up the help he received from Beijing in multiple elections, the donations. Yes, 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 and yes.
Okay, so have you started discussions with these parties?
I'll be reaching out early next week to talk with them about all of those things.
Opposition leaders to take seriously, not just to simply say, oh, there has to be a public inquiry. Okay, about who could lead this public inquiry? What would the terms of reference? Do they see as the timelines? How do they deal with the issue of respecting Canadian law that protects some of the intelligence all along, that all options remain on the table? We think there should be a public process, as Mr. Johnston recommended. So my hope is very quickly we can come to some consensus around those next steps. I think Canadians would benefit from that work.
But when do you think that the opposition will take this seriously?
We have to see how they can choose to not take it. Certainly Mr. Poilievre, who attacked Mr. Johnston, engaged in character assassination, coonery. If he says this is a serious issue, moment very quickly to come back to me and say, we think that these are two examples of the kind of people who could lead input directly into that process and not simply period and demand a public inquiry and not offer a suggestion.
They've been sucking up to big tactic for the last 8 years. What they want to do is shut down debate. Mr. Speaker, Canadians want the freedom to express themselves without government control.
What possibly crossover could there be? 2 minutes, Justin. 2 minutes. 30 secondes en retard. C'est mon pied, je marche dans le. Il y a 90 secondes. Come on. Step up your game, man. Là, tu peux faire du sport. Je te dirais qu'il est comme à 90, c'est barely. C'est un 5 physique. For about 20 seconds. Now.
Bonjour tout le monde. Tout d'abord, j'aimerais offrir mes pensées aux 66 000 Canadiens qui ont perdu leur emploi dans le mois d'août. Ça s'ajoute à un autre 40 000 qui avaient perdu leur emploi le mois de juillet. Ça fait 100 000 personnes qui ont perdu leur emploi dans un été à cause de la crise d'emploi des libéraux. Évidemment, plusieurs parmi eux sont des jeunes. des jeunes qui vivaient déjà l'enfer du marché immobilier des libéraux, après que les libéraux ont doublé le coût du logement. Ces gens-là avaient de la misère à payer leur loyer et à nourrir leur famille. Mais c'est des vraies personnes. C'est des papas qui sont retournés à leur maison pour dire à leurs enfants qu'il n'y a plus d'emploi et qu'ils vont probablement devoir vendre leur maison. C'est parmi les conséquences graves des décisions que M. Carney a prises depuis son arrivée au pouvoir. Il a promis qu'après 10 ans des libéraux, que les choses allaient être différentes, hein? Mais en effet, les choses sont encore pires. Il a promis de créer des emplois, mais depuis son arrivée au pouvoir, il y a bien plus que 100 000 plus de gens qui ont perdu leur emploi. Il a promis qu'il allait réduire le coût de la vie, mais aujourd'hui, l'inflation alimentaire est plus élevée que ça a été quand M. Carney a pris le pouvoir. Encore, c'est pire le prix de nourriture aujourd'hui à cause de M. Carney qu'il y a 5 mois. Il a promis qu'il allait bâtir des choses. Vous souvenez-vous? Il allait bâtir très rapidement. Mais selon son agence immobilière, le gouvernement s'attend à ce que la construction de logements tombe de 13 % d'ici les prochaines 3 ans. Et il n'a même pas réussi à établir un bureau qui allait un jour fabriquer des maisons de haute technologie. Ça reste un rêve. Parlant des rêves, le Globe and Mail a annoncé aujourd'hui qu'il y a une liste de rêves. Pas d'une liste de projets, mais une liste de rêves. C'est des projets qui sont en train de possiblement considérer, donner à un bureau qui n'existe pas encore pour peut-être faire une décision pour que ces projets seraient peut-être bâtis un jour. C'est ça que M. Carney a accompli en termes de construction de projets. Il a dit qu'il allait contrôler les crimes, mais encore la criminalité est en hausse. On a vu des attaques hier épouvantables par quelqu'un qui était libéré encore sous caution à cause des lois des libéraux, que M. Carney a promis de changer, mais qui n'a pas changé, et les gens ont perdu la vie à cause de son inaction face aux lois libérales pro-criminelles. Il a promis qu'il allait dépenser moins, et on va aller investir plus. Mais gardons le fait, pas les promesses. Oublions les lettres qu'il a envoyées à ses ministres ou des promesses d'un jour d'avoir de l'austérité. Les dépenses ont augmenté de 8 % depuis son arrivée au pouvoir. Et selon les calculs des économistes, le déficit Carney va être 2 fois plus important que le déficit de Justin Trudeau. Pouvez-vous imaginer ça? Avoir un déficit 2 fois plus élevé que M. Trudeau, qui dépensait hors de contrôle. Et parlant de l'investissement, 63 milliards d'investissements a quitté le Canada pour aller aux autres pays depuis, ça c'est net, depuis l'arrivée au pouvoir de M. Carney. Il a promis qu'on allait avoir l'économie, la meilleure économie dans le G7. Maintenant, on a la pire croissance économique parmi ces 7 pays. Les pires prix immobiliers parmi le G7. Le pire endettement des familles parmi le G7. Et le deuxième pire taux de chômage parmi le G7. Donc, il a promis d'être le meilleur. Il est le pire parmi le G7. Et c'est drôle qu'il continue de répéter la même promesse lorsqu'il est en train de briser ce promesse. Il a dit vouloir acheter Canada en même temps qu'il donne près d'1 milliard de dollars au gouvernement chinois pour produire des grands bateaux pour la Colombie-Britannique. En fait, il fait volte-face sur la question d'interdire des voitures à gaz. Moi, j'ai dit il y a longtemps que c'était une politique stupide et coûteuse qui allait nuire aux communautés rurales et tuer des emplois, M. Carney, oublions pas, ce n'est pas une politique de Justin Trudeau qui l'a renversé. C'est lui qui avait écrit dans son livre qu'il était pour cette interdiction en 2030. Donc, il était encore plus sévère que M. Trudeau. Mais M. Carney, comme avec la taxe carbone, avait besoin d'avouer que les conservateurs avaient raison et que lui, il avait tort. Il a souvent tort. Il doit souvent avouer qu'il a tort sur beaucoup d'enjeux pour quelqu'un qui se décrit comme étant un expert. Mais il fait son recul de façon inadéquate en menaçant de ramener cette interdiction dans l'avenir, ce qui va décourager l'investissement dans le secteur automobile, nous revendiquons que l'interdiction sur les voitures de gaz soit renversée totalement et de façon permanente. C'est ça une façon d'aller. C'est une grande show de boucan pour M. Carney cet été. Beaucoup de choses, beaucoup de réunions, beaucoup de lettres envoyées, beaucoup d'annonces, mais rien accompli. Tout est pire. Chômage est pire, coût de la vie est pire, la crise de logement est pire, la croissance économique est pire, les tarifs que M. Carney a promis d'abolir en négociant une win avec Donald Trump, ça c'est pire. Tout est pire aujourd'hui qu'il y a 5 ans. Il faut que ça change. Donc, c'est pour ça que les conservateurs vont retourner à la Chambre des communes, vont promouvoir une politique de l'espoir pour les Canadiens. Plus de pouvoir d'achat avec des taxes, des impôts et les dépenses vraiment réduits. Des rues sécuritaires en mettant les criminels en prison. Des frontières solides en appliquant les freins sur l'immigration libérale qui est hors de contrôle et une économie autosuffisante en adaptant la loi sur la souveraineté pour inviter la construction rapide à travers le pays des grands projets, y compris de logements que les gens peuvent acheter. C'est ça une vision pour le Canada qui est remplie de l'espoir. Et on est prêt à travailler avec M. Carney. Nous voulons que le gouvernement libéral vole les idées conservatrices. C'est les meilleures idées et on est là pour les produire et pour aider à les mettre en place. Parce que notre but, c'est de mettre le Canada d'abord et que chaque Canadien peut avoir une belle vie dans une maison abordable dans les communautés sécuritaires. Thank you very much, everyone. Before I get started, let me just share my thoughts and prayers with the 66,000 Canadians who lost their jobs last month. They're added to the 40,000 who lost their jobs the month before that. 100,000 Canadians lost their jobs this summer alone, having to go home to their families, their little kids, and sit around the dinner table saying they don't know how they're going to pay rent or groceries. They might have to move out of their home and find a smaller place. And this is a terrible time for them, especially our youth. Think of our youth who were already going through hell. Their housing costs had doubled during the time the Liberals have been in power. Food prices were unaffordable. Their streets were in danger. And now they wake up and find out they don't even have a job. And to add insult to injury, while we lost 105,000 jobs over the summer, there's 106,000 temporary foreign workers filling those jobs. Mark Carney is on track to let in a record number of temporary foreign workers this year because he says the corporate lobbyists tell him they want to keep wages low and their profits high. Once again, he sides with the wealthy, liberal corporate lobbyists rather than the hardworking Canadians who want to put in a day's work. And, you know, this compounds the cost of living crisis. Let's compare everything to what Mr. Carney promised. He promised that he was going to make Canada more affordable. Yet food prices are now rising faster than they were when Mr. Carney took office. He promised that he was going to reverse Liberal crime policies, and yet 5 months into his term, he's done absolutely nothing, and crime rages out of control. Just yesterday, another horrific attack, this time on First Nations people, by someone who is once again, out on bail because Mark Carney gave himself a summer off instead of reversing the Liberal laws. He said he would build at a pace once thought unimaginable because we were in an existential crisis. What has he built? Let's start with housing. He says that one day he will set up an office, and this office is going to do things that will one day mean that houses get built. This office still doesn't exist after 5 months of his government, and it hasn't obviously built a single home. Meanwhile, the housing crisis worsens from just being too expensive to being impossible to build, with his own housing agency saying housing construction will be down by 13% over the next several years. And then the national projects we were promised. We're 5 months in. He has not approved a single national project. In fact, he doesn't even have a list of projects he's considering approving. Today, we got the Dream List published in the Globe and Mail. This is, to be clear, not a list of projects Mark Carney supports. It's a list of projects that he wants to potentially consider looking at and potentially referring to an office that isn't even yet set up that might one day decide to approve them, and that after that, they might one day begin construction. But so far, absolutely nothing is getting built. And then we have his promise that he would spend less and invest more. Well, spending is up 8%, with most of the new money going to bureaucracy and consultants, while investment is fleeing our country, with a record $63 billion of investment leaving Canada in the 5 months that Mark Carney has been Prime Minister, and our economy is cratering. In fact, after Mr. Carney promised we'd have the best economy in the G7, what do you know? The latest quarterly data, we have the lowest economic growth in the G7. That adds to the second highest unemployment in the G7, the worst housing costs in the G7, and the most household debt in the G7. Those are the results, not the rhetoric. He said today he was going to buy Canada, but in fact he's giving $1 billion loan to buy Chinese-made ships so that our workers don't get that work. He is doing exactly the opposite of what he says. And today he's flip-flopped. After being a passionate advocate for banning gas-powered vehicles, calling for them to be banned by 2030 in his book, Values, which, by the way, was much more aggressive than Trudeau's plan, to ban them in 2035, he's finally admitted that the Conservatives were right, just like we were right on the carbon tax. But he's doing a clumsy retreat, saying that he's going to delay this mandate. So now, businesses who would otherwise consider investing in automaking here in Canada will have to put that investment on hold while Mark Carney dithers for another year to try and figure out how he can ban people from putting gas and diesel in their trucks and cars. Mark Carney can't even get his flip-flops right. But this really has been, as I said yesterday, the Seinfeld summer for Mark Carney, a big show about nothing. You know, I think specifically about George Costanza. You remember George Costanza? He was a legend. George Costanza had this great episode where he had this fancy, high-paying job with a corner office, and he didn't do any work, like literally none, but he wanted to look busy, so he would storm up and down the hallways carrying file folders. He would leave the lights on in his car in front of the office building on the weekend, even though he wasn't there. He would yell into the phone, even though no one was on the other end of the line, and they kept paying him because he looked so busy. I have to admit, Mark Carney has looked really busy this summer. He's been flying off to Europe to sign declarations of intent that actually mean absolutely nothing. He's been holding roundtables with other politicians. You've seen politicians patting each other on the back, congratulating themselves on all the excellent meetings they've been holding. There have been letters written to ministers that then get leaked to media and are reported with great fanfare on front pages everywhere. My goodness, he's almost as busy and as useless as George Costanza. It has been a big show about nothing. Nothing is getting done under Mark Carney. Everything is getting worse. The American tariffs, which he promised to get rid of by negotiating wind, they're worse. Housing crisis is worse. Food inflation is worse. Crime is worse. Unemployment is worse. Everything has been worse under Mark Carney. But we're offering him some help. Conservatives are willing to work with any member of any party to turn things around for this country. Our priorities for the fall session are stronger take-home pay with lower taxes and lower inflation, securing our borders by ending out-of-control liberal immigration, securing our streets by locking up violent criminals, and a self-reliant Canada by opening this country up for business with a National Sovereignty Act that will rapidly approve pipelines, mines, LNG plants, export terminals built by the private sector without tax dollars that make money rather than take money. That's how we will make our economy strong, self-reliant, and stand on its own 2 feet. And that is how we will make this a country again where anyone who wants a job can find one. They can get a home, affordable food, meat and potatoes on the table, and a safe neighborhood with a nice Canadian flag hanging from the front porch. That's what we're working for. Let's make it happen.
Parliament is coming back in just a few days. What is going to be your strategy to go vis-a-vis Mark Carney? And do you think this honeymoon period with the Liberals is going to last?
Well, my strategy is to focus on putting paychecks in Canadians' pockets, putting criminals in jail, slamming the brakes on liberal immigration, getting shovels in the ground, and getting our country back on its feet. And simply pointing out that with Mark Carney, it's been all show business and no real business. He's gotten absolutely nothing done this summer other than shuffle a lot of papers and hold a lot of meetings while Canadians lose their jobs, can't afford food, and are unable to buy homes. And we will be holding him accountable for that. But, you know, we're also going to not just oppose, but propose great ideas to solve these problems so that we can make this a country, once again, where hard work is possible, that it pays off, and everyone can have an affordable, safe future.
You mentioned the list of projects. It includes
the dream list.
It includes a pipeline from Alberta to the Pacific, which you've been advocating. What do you make of that inclusion?
Okay, so to be clear, what is this list? Is this the list of things he's going to build? Is this the list of that this office is reviewing? What is this list? It's a dream list. Like we can't even. So what he said and what he's leaked to the Globe is that somebody put together a list of projects that some people who are not in the government would like to see built, that one day Mark Carney's future office will examine and consider possibly deciding on. That's what we're dealing with here. So despite the blazing headlines about a list, what this is a dream list that does not exist anywhere in reality. Mr. Carney, on the question of a pipeline to the Pacific, of course I support it. If I'd been elected Prime Minister on April 28th, construction would be underway right now on that project. And if you question that, I'll tell you how. We already had an approved project to go from Hardisty, Alberta to Kitimat. The route, the pathway is already there. 80% of First Nations already endorsed the project. Why not get building? What's there to study? We already know that there's 2 billion people in Asia that want to buy that energy. So it's a no-brainer, and it would have been under construction today. Well, it would have been under construction 10 years ago had Trudeau not killed it, and it would be under construction if I had been chosen. Of course, this was the subject of a very big disagreement Mr. Carney and I had at the Industry Committee before we were both leaders. We had a big debate about it. He said he was against the Northern Gateway Pipeline. I said I was for, and he was simultaneously having his company invested in pipelines in Brazil and the Middle East at the time, but not wanting to build one in Canada. That's the difference. I want to build stuff here in this country.
Mais il n'y a pas eu beaucoup de détails qui ont été donnés de la part de...
I'll be happy to come in.
Il y a eu beaucoup d'idées, mais il n'y a pas eu beaucoup de détails qui ont été donnés de la part de Mark Carney sur la façon dont on veut se rendre plus dépendant de l'économie américaine. En même temps, il y a beaucoup de choses que le gouvernement promet de faire et qui vont durer longtemps. Ma question à vous, c'est quel message s'envoie sur l'état des négociations avec les États-Unis?
Donc, vous avez dit qu'il n'y a pas eu beaucoup de détails sur le plan économique ou sur les négociations?
Les deux.
OK. M. Carney nous a dit qu'il fallait agir avec une rapidité sans précédent dans des élections. Mais ça fait 5 mois, il n'y a même pas un seul projet qu'il a identifié vouloir bâtir. Il n'y a aucun permis de construction pour un grand projet national. Ça fait presque un demi-an depuis qu'il est au pouvoir. rien ne se produise, il n'y a aucun résultat. M. Carney montre une grande faiblesse face aux États-Unis et c'est pour ça que je pense qu'il a été forcé de faire des grandes concessions l'une après l'autre sans avoir aucun gain pour le Canada. Il a aussi promis, oublions, on est tous d'accord que c'est pas facile de gérer Trump. C'est pour ça que j'ai jamais dit, c'est pas moi qui a fait la promesse, c'est lui qui a dit pouvoir gérer Trump, négocier une victoire, mettre des coûts élevés. C'était ses promesses, mais il a lui-même abrogé toutes ses promesses par rapport à Trump. Il a fait totalement volte-face et il montre une grande faiblesse. C'est pour ça que dans les 5 mois de Mark Carney, les tarifs américains ont doublé sur le Canada. Donc, on est dans une pire position qu'on était quand il est arrivé au pouvoir.
Ça va durer longtemps. Les Canadiens doivent se serrer la ceinture, là.
J'espère qu'on va pouvoir réussir. Et nous sommes là. Mon message pour M. Carney, on est là pour travailler avec vous afin d'obtenir le meilleur deal possible avec les Américains. Il faut mettre la partisanerie à côté et mettre le Canada d'abord. This nice lady here.
First Nations chiefs declared about an hour ago a First Nations-wide state of emergency for the toxic drug crisis, and they're proposing a new law that would hold criminally responsible people who sell drugs to community members where they end up dying because they're laced 15 years in prison. Would you support something like that?
Yes, I would support that 100%. And I think it is appalling that this Liberal government has unleashed such a horrific drug crisis, not just on the general Canadian population, but it has hit First Nations people particularly hard. And it's really frustrating because all the chiefs that I have talked to have the common sense solution. They want to ban the drugs, lock up the drug dealers, and provide treatment and recovery services to their members. Mr. Carney and Trudeau have taken the exact opposite approach. They basically legalize these drugs. They allow soft penalties. They've reduced the penalties for the dealers who spread this poison in our streets. And I would go even further. I think there should be life sentences for anyone caught marketing or producing more than 40 milligrams. That is enough to kill 20 people. 20 people with 40 milligrams. These are mass murderers. They should be locked up. We should lock them up and throw away the key. And we should provide compassionate treatment to get the victims off these drugs.
On canola, Scott Mowat said yesterday that if it was up to him, Saskatchewan would remove the tariffs on EVs from Chinese EVs in hope that China might remove tariffs on the canola sector. If it was up to you, would you do the same thing?
No, I don't believe that is the right way to go. I think that, first of all, China wants these electric vehicles to be roving surveillance operations on our streets. And in 10 years, God forbid, there's a conflict, and then there's millions of those vehicles surveilling our population in our streets. That would be a strategic problem for our country. So I respect Scott Moe. He's a great premier. I just respectfully disagree with this point. What I would do instead is I would cancel the $1 billion loan the Liberals are giving under Mark Carney to buy Chinese-made ships. I would say to the dictators in Beijing, you are not going to be selling $1 billion of ships to our country when you are unlawfully and unfairly targeting our canola producers with tariffs.
Sur les débuts électoraux, selon vous, est-ce que c'est une décision politique aujourd'hui? Vous aviez une campagne de prévue là-dessus pour la rentrée, puis en même temps, est-ce que ça vient aussi vous couper un peu l'herbe sous le pied?
Oui, les conservateurs ont encore gagné un débat sur un enjeu. On a gagné le débat. Et chaque fois, c'est le même. Peut-être on devrait commencer à se souvenir du fait que c'est les mêmes étapes. Poilievre dit quelque chose. Tout le monde capote en disant que c'est tout arrageux ce que Poilievre dit. Puis, quelques mois ou quelques années plus tard, on dit OK, peut-être Poilievre avait raison. Et c'est ça qui arrive maintenant encore. On était contre la taxe carbone. M. Carney était pour, mais il avait besoin de faire volte-face. On a fait les mêmes arguments sur l'inflation, la criminalité, les drogues et maintenant l'immigration. Et les libéraux vont être forcés de faire volte-face plus tard. Donc, M. Carney était en train de perdre le débat sur l'interdiction des voitures de gaz. Et c'est pour ça qu'il a fait soudainement volte-face quelques jours avant le retour du Parlement. Mais à un moment donné, je pense que les Canadiens vont décider qu'ils veulent quelqu'un qui parle vrai dès le début.
Vehicles. How do you think that Canada should lower emissions from transportation, if not through EVs or EV rebates?
Well, we should export our clean energy to the world. National Bank showed that if we exported our natural gas to supply India with half of its future electricity needs, it would displace 2.5 billion tons of greenhouse gases, which is equal to the 3 years of emissions of the entire Canadian economy. So my approach for Mr. Carney is very different. He believes in energy poverty. I believe in energy abundance. He believes in taxing energy. I believe in unleashing energy. He believes in raising costs. I believe in bringing them down. And that is a big debate we're going to have, and I believe that Canadians will choose wisely.
How would you support canola producers in Canada if you're not going to ban the
Well, as I said, we should punish the regime in Beijing by canceling the $1 billion loan for the ships that the Liberals want to buy from China. And secondly, we are collecting tariffs from China. Some of those tariffs should be flowed back to the canola producers to help them with the price drop that has resulted from the Chinese tariffs.
C'est dont M. Carney parle pour aider les agriculteurs du canola, c'est une bonne idée, ça?
Mais il propose une nouvelle taxe carbone, le taxe carbone de 17 sous qui va appliquer d'ici 2030. Et ça va nuire aux agriculteurs. Après tout, les agriculteurs utilisent beaucoup d'essence et diesel. Donc, mettons une nouvelle taxe sur le dos des consommateurs, c'est une mauvaise idée et c'est encore une promesse brisée de Mark Carney.
What do you make of your ban in Quebec? Are you for or against it?
I haven't seen the proposal, so I'll be looking forward to studying it.
Êtes-vous d'accord avec l'idée de bannir les prières en public?
Encore, je vais regarder la proposition avant de la commenter.
Ethical, are you in favor or against banning prayer in public?
I'm going to read the bill because the risk I have in answering the way that you have worded it is that the way you're characterizing it might not be the way the bill is written. So I will have to read the bill and figure out what it is before I take a position. Just a wise approach always. Thank you very much. Great to see you all. All the best. Encore sous caution à cause des lois des libéraux. Que M. Carney a promis de changer, mais qui n'a pas changé, et les gens ont perdu la vie à cause de son inaction face aux lois libérales pro.
Good morning, everyone. Bonjour tout le monde. It's a pleasure to be here today, of course, with Prime Minister, with all our colleagues, and with all of you. Canadian industry is the backbone of our economy, and today we're here to strengthen that backbone. Indeed. Over the past few weeks, we've traveled the country meeting our workers and our industries. And people understand that we're living in a much more unpredictable and dangerous world. There are things we cannot control, but there are lots of things that we can control. What we heard is this. First, a call for more support. Second, a pride to keep building Canada strong. And third, a shared determination on that mission. The global trade landscape is shifting, and Canada must meet the moment. Our government is building a more resilient, a more independent economy, one that puts Canadian workers and industries first. Aujourd'hui, nous investissons dans nos travailleurs.
Today, we're investing in our workers and our industries. We're investing in people at home and also in our Canadian businesses. People want us to act, and that's exactly what we're doing. We're doing it because it's good for our economy, and it's also good for Canada.
We're doing this not only to protect our economy now, but also to make sure that we're thinking ahead and we're acting for the long term. And together, we're laying the foundation for Canada's prosperity wherever region of this country can grow, succeed, and lead. And with now, indeed, and now, it is my pleasure to present you the Prime Minister of Canada, Mark Carney.
Thank you. Merci beaucoup, Minister Joly. Bonjour tout le monde.
Hello, everyone.
It is a great pleasure to be here at Mitsubishi Heavy. I just want to say a word before I get started about what an incredible company this is. Wait, Luke, thank you for welcoming us here because this is a company that is connected across Canada and is connected around the world. I lived in Japan 35 years ago now. Oh, am I 60? Yes, I am 60. Leading company then, leading company now. And as a signal of the importance of companies like this, a signal of the importance of the issue we're going to talk about today, I'm joined today by cabinet colleagues, Minister Joly, Minister Champagne, Mr. MacDonald, Mr. Haiju, Mr. De Bruzen, Mr. Lightbound, and Secretary of State Zaruchelli. I'm joined by the Peel Caucus. You are joined by the Government of Canada. We have just come from 2 days of our federal cabinet convening in North York, and we spent those days with a clear focus on delivering our overarching mission in this time of crisis. Our overarching mission is to build Canada's economic strength in face of unprecedented change. Now, here at Mitsubishi Heavy Industries, we're surrounded by examples of that strength. State-of-the-art manufacturing, state-of-the-art assembly expertise, Canadian skill and ingenuity, a supply chain that makes heavy use of Canadian materials such as Quebec aluminum. And workers in this facility are building more than aircraft. They are building a stronger future for their families and for our country.
As the Canadian government looks to the future, we remain laser focused on one single priority, giving our workers what they need to double the construction of housing over the next decade, to accelerate major national projects, to implement a new industrial strategy, a new defense industrial strategy, to rebuild and to rearm and to invest in our armed forces as well. And also to focus on three key objectives. First of all, to protect our communities. Secondly, to secure our borders and reduce the cost of living. Thirdly,
the world is changing rapidly. The largest economy, the United States, is fundamentally reshaping all of its trading relationships. And we're moving from an age that lasted decades, an age when free trade was a motor of global economic growth, to a new age, an age of economic nationalism and mercantilism. You know, the U.S. tariff rate is now the highest it has been since the Great Depression in the 1930s. And these tariffs are being applied to all countries on nearly all goods. And the changes in U.S. policy go beyond tariffs. Countries now must, in effect, buy access to the world's largest economy through investments, through unilateral trade liberalization, and policy changes in their home markets. And all the while, the transformation of global trade is occurring against a backdrop of wider economic disruptions, of geopolitical realignment, of AI and other technological transformations, and the necessity, the imperative of a shift to a greener economy. What's going on is not a transition. It's a rupture, and its effect will be profound. Workers displaced from their jobs. Supply chains that have existed for decades disrupted. Companies forced to change where they find their materials and their products. And all of this is causing an extreme uncertainty that's holding back massive amounts of investment and, as a consequence, slowing economic growth. Just this morning, We see the impact in today's employment report in Canada, with unemployment rising across regions and sectors. This makes decisive action crucial. To be clear, we're in a position right now where Canada currently has the best trading deal with the United States of any of their trading partners. 85% of our trade with the U.S. is now tariff-free. And we have the lowest tariff rate of any country in the world. But we also know that given all those changes, given the rupture, we can't rely on our most important trading partner as we once did. Le libre-échange depuis longtemps.
Free trade has been a pillar of the Canadian economy for a long time. For decades, our increasing participation in the American market was one of the strengths, the economic strengths Canada had. Trade represents 2/3 of Canada's GDP. Sectors like the automobile sector, the steel sector, and the aluminum sector send more than 90% of their production to the U.S. And in many cases, the supply chains are interdependent. These sectors are essential to our economy because of the size of their production and the jobs they create and the communities they support. What in the past was one of Canada's strengths has today become a vulnerability.
So our relationship with the United States, so essential for so many industries, was once one of our greatest strengths, and in many cases, in certain sectors, has become a vulnerability. This disruption calls for a bold new approach. And given, as Minister Joly said, given that we can't control what other nations do, Canada's government is focused on what we can control. And that means building our strength at home, building Canada strong. That means giving our workers and our companies the tools they need, retraining our workers, transforming our strategic sectors, creating entirely new industries, and being our own best customer by buying Canadian. And to these ends, our new government is embarking on an ambitious plan to secure a new era of prosperity out of this age of adversity. Our new industrial strategy will help transform our economy from being overly reliant on the United States to one that is more resilient to global shocks. A new economy that's built on the solid foundation of Canadian industries, Canadian workers, and it's bolstered by diverse international trading partners. To drive this transformation, we've just launched the Major Projects Office. Its job is to fast-track major nation-building projects. Shortly, we will launch Build Canada Homes just later this month. And that's a new government entity that will help double the pace of housing construction over the next decade, while creating a new housing industry using Canadian technology, Canadian workers, and Canadian lumber. This fall, we will unveil a new defense industrial strategy so that our defense estimates, which will be enormous, our defense investments support the growth of Canadian industries and create Canadian jobs and careers. We'll begin this month our negotiations of a new defense and security partnership with the European Union. And we've launched a new trade diversification strategy to develop new export markets. We will soon also release our climate competitiveness strategy to position Canada as a leader in decarbonization. As Canada's new government embarks on these missions, we will work to ensure Canadian businesses and workers have the tools that they need to help drive this transformation. Let me be clear. If we want our economy to grow, and we do, with thriving careers at home and booming exports around the world, we must once again become a country that builds big and builds fast. Because, as Minister Valdez knows, entrepreneurs, builders, dreamers power our economy. They are the engines of growth. And the strategic industries that are being so heavily impacted by U.S. tariffs, steel, lumber, aluminum, copper, our resource sectors, these are the industries that build Canada. And they will be central to our future competitiveness in a world of major infrastructure investment, defense and security, and that unprecedented acceleration in home building. And the government's role right now, in fact, the government's duty right now, is to make sure that our builders have what they need to succeed, so that they have greater certainty about the scale of the opportunities. Because when our builders, our entrepreneurs face calculated risks rather than unknowable uncertainty, that's when Canadian builders and innovators thrive. That's when the whole country rises with them, with higher wages, lower costs, and a stronger economy. So today, to fortify our economic strength, my colleagues and I are announcing a series of ambitious new measures to protect, build, and transform our strategic industries. These are the sectors where workers and businesses have been impacted by those tariffs and trade disruptions. And we're building on our recent initiatives to help transform Canada's steel and lumber sectors. The measures today will help workers acquire the skills and businesses to retool their production, businesses to diversify their products and markets, and, crucially, spurring more demand right here at home for Canadian businesses. The first and foremost, the foundation, is Canadian workers. And we're going to support Canadian workers so they can drive Canada's economic transformation with new skills training and help them seize the exciting high-paying careers that that transformation will create. To build a strong confidence workforce that will help propel our economy forward, the government is introducing a new robust reskilling package to train 50,000 workers. This package will include new methods such as employer-based training and targeted outreach to workers. We will automatically enroll new employment insurance claimants to our new jobs matching program and introduce a new platform with a skills to job tool to make job searches easier and match people more quickly to new jobs, connect them to training opportunities and career counseling. We'll leverage digital technologies and artificial intelligence to help working Canadians find training courses, supported by partnerships with companies such as Indeed, Jubilico, Career Beacon, ZipRecruiter, and eCampus Ontario. We'll also launch new sector alliances across industries, unions, and governments to coordinate recruiting and retraining efforts. And finally, we'll adapt employment insurance to provide a bridge to laid-off workers, giving them the time they will need to pivot. This will include providing long-tenured workers with up to 65 weeks of benefits. That's 20 more weeks than they have access to today. And we'll waive the one-week waiting period for over 700,000 claimants. The second major initiative that we're announcing today is a new $5 billion strategic response fund to help Canadian businesses adapt, diversify, and build that new economy. This fund has three core objectives. First, to help businesses pivot to new products and markets. Secondly, to retrain and retain skills and production here in Canada. And thirdly, to make our businesses globally competitive. So businesses can use these funds to invest in the design of new products, to retool their plants to boost productivity, or to offset the costs of accessing new markets. And the fund will be open to all sectors, given the fact that the tariff impacts are wide-ranging across Canadian industries. The
priority will be given to projects from the most affected sectors like steel, automobile, lumber, and aluminum. The Strategic Response Fund will work in close cooperation with our new sectoral alliance to make sure that these investment projects are not stopped or slowed down by market challenges. Through a better coordination between industry and workers, we'll be able to effectively train and match workers to new jobs in tomorrow's sectors.
The third major thing we're announcing today is a comprehensive Buy Canadian policy. We are on a mission to build Canada strong through major infrastructure projects, through that modern defense industry, and by building millions of more homes. In that mission, the public sector can serve as an anchor customer for Canadian businesses. But for that to happen, a lot of things must change. At present, Canada's public procurement is following outdated rules of that old free trade order that no longer exists. For years, we've been buying as a government significantly from foreign suppliers for short-term gain. Now we need to use government procurement using Canadian taxpayer dollars to spur Canadian businesses for longer-term prosperity. To support Canadian industries, the government's introducing a new comprehensive Buy Canadian policy that will move from best efforts to buy Canadian to a clear obligation to do so. And when Canadian suppliers are truly unavailable, we'll require local consent and purchases from trusted partners. And these cases will be the exception, not the norm. They'll have to be approved by ministers. We'll apply this approach beyond a narrow definition of the federal government to all federal agencies and all federal crown corporations, leveraging every dollar the federal government spends and invests. And finally, we're going to cut out red tape and simplify access for businesses to those federal procurement opportunities. This is an approach that can also help serve as a roadmap that could be adopted by provinces, territories, and municipalities. Canada
is a proud defender of free trade. We will respect those agreements and we will continue to strengthen free trade agreements with reliable partners. But at the same time, we have to focus more on our own resources. In the EU, 3/4 of the steel consumed is produced on site in EU. In Canada, however, we tend to export more than 60% of our raw materials, and then we re-import the finished product.
We will build more with Canadian steel, Canadian lumber, Canadian technology, Canadian workers. We will build big, build bold, build Canadian. Now, I said a moment ago when I started that this is a rupture. It's a big change that's being forced on us in a short period of time. So we need to provide immediate liquidity relief to businesses. There's immense change in a short period of time, and businesses that have relied most heavily on the trade with the United States, such as the auto sector, will need temporary immediate relief from liquidity pressures. Businesses need time to reposition themselves for the future. And for small and medium-sized businesses, The Business Development Bank of Canada will increase loans, the maximum loan size to help with this, from $2 to $5 million. For largest businesses and larger businesses, the Large Enterprise Tariff Loan Facility will provide flexible financing at scale with lower interest rates and longer maturities. We're going to implement these changes immediately to ensure that our businesses can bridge the gap to the future. And it's not all about money. Some of it is about regulation. So to add flexibility to the automotive sector, we will remove the 2026 electric vehicle availability standard, which specifies the share of new vehicle sales that must be electric next year. This will provide immediate financial relief to automakers at a time of increased pressure on their competitiveness. And the government will begin immediately a 60-day review of the EV standard to identify future flexibilities and ways to reduce costs. And we'll advance new options to bring more and more affordable electric vehicles to Canadians. And fifth, we're announcing today that we're acting to protect Canada's agriculture and seafood industries. I'm going to focus on Canadian canola, which has been hit with Chinese tariffs. Also Canadian beef that's been subjected to unjustified trade action since 2021, and Canadian lobster since March of this year. To strengthen these sectors, Canada's government will introduce a new biofuel production incentive, providing more than $370 million to assist domestic producers and help them restructure their value chains. We will make targeted amendments to the clean fuel regulations to spur the development of a vibrant biofuels industry in Canada. And we'll increase the loan limits for Canadian canola producers to $500,000 and invest in agri-marketing and trade diversification measures to support our entire agriculture and seafood sectors. En mars,
in March, our government announced a regional initiative to respond to tariffs for small and medium businesses affected by American tariffs. The objective was clear: to stimulate investment, to commercialize new products, and to adopt innovative technology as well. Today, we're doing even more. We're going further. We're extending this program by increasing funding from $450 million to $1 billion. We're also extending the reimbursement timelines to 9 years, and we're offering new non-reimbursable contributions up to $1 million in all sectors, including in agriculture and seafood. The Canadian economy, well, the backbone of the Canadian economy is small and medium businesses, and if we want to build the economy of the future, they have to invest massively and now.
The mission that is guiding Canada's new government, the North Star that we follow, is building lasting economic strength for Canadian workers and their families. With economic uncertainty making it challenging for the private sector to invest, government must act. As Minister Joly said, government is meeting this moment with the most comprehensive suite of trade resilient measures in Canadian history. We're building these measures around 5 principles. A focus on the future to ensure that workers and businesses have the tools they need to pivot to new opportunities. Secondly, we're making sure the application is widespread. The programs are broad in scope because of the scale and breadth of the disruption in trade. Third, we're making sure they're flexible so they can be adapted to changing circumstances. Fourth, making sure they're accessible, making it simple to access them, keeping red tape at a minimum. And finally, they're cooperative. Provinces and territories will have important roles to play, and this national effort requires cost sharing and collaboration across all levels of government.
These new measures will give our industries and our workers the tools they need to build a stronger future, a stronger economy. Canada's economy in the future will depend less on one single trading partner and will be based on solid foundations, a strong Canadian market, vigorous Canadian demand, and diversified trading partners as well.
We look back over our country's history, we've always turned challenges into opportunities. Canadians built the Transcontinental Railway to open new markets for wheat and timber. We retooled entire sectors of this economy in the fight during the Second World War. And then we built hundreds of thousands of new homes in record time for returning heroes and their families. We built a new seaway to unlock the potential of the Great Lakes economy. We forged new trade links for steel and lumber when old markets closed. And now, at this moment of profound change, we bear the same responsibilities, and we should have the same ambitions as those who became before us. Our ambition is to build the strongest economy in the G7. We know we need to act now, invest now, precisely when it's hard. And that's why we're charting an economic strategy to move our country forward, from reliance to resilience, from uncertainty to prosperity.
By supporting our workers and our businesses and our industries, we will build a Canada strong.
Canada strong with your support. Thank you very much. Merci.
We'll now take a few questions. We'll do one question per journalist. No follow-ups. Première question, c'est tout.
Good morning, Prime Minister. Judy Trin with CTV News. Given that your government is pausing some EV targets and reevaluating the policy, and in your own words, you said you would like to pursue new options to bring more affordable electric vehicles to Canada. Does that mean that your government is also considering lifting the 100% tariffs that your predecessor put on electric vehicles made in China that have triggered punishing tariffs on the canola industry in Western Canada?
Thank you for the question, Judy. The first thing is to say, from our perspective on climate competitiveness, is to develop the competitiveness of our industries everywhere from the resource sector through to manufacturing, through to services, so that Canadian businesses can compete. We can grow foreign markets. We can grow jobs and sustainable jobs here in Canada. And in that regard, there's a series of measures that we're taking and will take, starts from the tax system and works its way out, so that the investments in decarbonization are happening here in Canada. You will see some elements of that coming with the major projects when those announcements are made as well, but there'll be a more comprehensive approach for climate competitiveness as part of our global industrial competitiveness strategy, and you'll see that in the coming weeks. That's the first point, so I want to put it into that context. The second is that we are working through, we're at the start of a restructuring in the Canadian auto sector. The suspension of the EV mandate for 2026 is part of helping with that. Crucially, that strategic response fund that we announced today, the $5 billion that's available for retooling, reinvestment, repositioning, we expect heavy use in the auto industry to help with that repositioning. And it is in the context of broader trade discussions, yes, with the United States, first and foremost, given the deep ties between Canada and the United States in the auto sector, as well as other countries. With respect to China, we have begun more intense engagement with China with respect, first and foremost, to canola and other agriculture and seafood products, but it will, I'm sure those discussions will branch out, but it's too early to come to any conclusions on those. Thank you.
Radio-Canada. Today, you're scrapping the EV mandate. Do you intend to scrap the carbon tax? Well, you've already done that, in fact. The Climate Caucus is saying you're not doing enough to protect the climate. How would you respond to that? Well, the position of the Canadian government is the following. Dealing with climate change is a moral obligation, first of all, but at the same time, it's a trade imperative. It's a competitiveness imperative as well. Right now, we're focusing on the competitiveness of our businesses here in Canada, of our workers as well. And this will bring about a reduction in greenhouse gases. We intend to strengthen tax credits to foster investment in clean energy. That's the first thing. Secondly, we'll keep the industrial carbon pricing at the same level. We have to improve the way the market works, the carbon market works, and as I've just said, there will be a policy for carbon competitiveness. There'll be a strategy and a strategy for nature at the same time. So we intend to do a lot, but we're focusing really on results, and the results are to improve the competitiveness of our economy, our businesses, as it pertains to the reduction in greenhouse gases.
Mr. Tom Harrod at CBC. Can I ask you, if you're reviewing the EV mandate, are you open to the idea of scrapping it altogether like the Conservatives are demanding? And I guess how should Canadians, we just asked this in French, but how should Canadians, I guess, see your commitment to Canada's climate goals? And if I could get you to clarify just on another matter, Minister LeBlanc said yesterday you're now pursuing smaller deals on certain sectors with the United States on tariffs. Why are you pursuing that strategy?
Well, let me, I'm going to take the second part first, and I'll come back to you first, which is Minister LeBlanc. What Minister LeBlanc said yesterday is what I said the day before, actually, so it's good to see that we're lined up. We're all lined up in the strategy. What's happening with our situation with the United States, and I'll do this quickly. We have the best deal of any country right now. 85% tariff-free, lowest tariff rate. The issue is the strategic sectors, and it's a big issue. Flavio Volpe is here. Thank you for coming. Flavio, he knows it well. Autos, steel, aluminum, forest products, copper. Those are the big issues. And those are areas that the United States has identified, we would agree, but has identified as strategic. So they have a different tariff regime for those sectors. And the only way to tackle those is to go directly to the sectors and recognize the interdependence between Canada and the United States. The fact that Canada makes the United States more competitive in these sectors and structure agreements in and around there, or look to structure agreements around those. Now, the U.S. has a very tough tariff policy around these, to be clear. So it's real work, it's hard work, but that's where we're focused. That is the, quote, smaller, they're not small, they're big, but sector-specific deals. At the same time, there will be a review of our overall trading arrangement with the United States and Mexico, CUSMA. We have begun the preparations for that. I expect the Americans and the Mexicans will do the same. That will happen, begin in the new year. But effectively, that is the bigger trading relationship, and so the focus for the larger trading relationship shifts to there. With respect to EV mandates, let's be absolutely clear. We have an auto sector, because of the massive change in U.S. trade policy, is under extreme pressure. We recognize that. That's why we put in place the major liquidity facility, and it is an enormous liquidity facility, the large enterprise tariff facility. That's why we're putting in place $5 billion in the Strategic Response Fund. That's why we're working with worker retraining. And that's why we're also looking for Buy Canadian opportunities with that sector, okay, that and other sectors. In that context, the EV mandate this year adds to the liquidity issues they have, the financial challenges that these producers have. They've got enough on their plate right now. So we're taking that off, allowing them to focus, working with them. We're using this as an opportunity as part of a broader strategy on climate competitiveness to look at all our measures to help get greenhouse gases down, as I said a moment ago in French, greenhouse gases down in the key sectors, as well as across the economy. And we'll look at the interaction between the EV mandate, our clean fuel standards, our investment tax credits, our trade policy, all of those elements, because what this government is focused on is absolutely results. Not saying something's going to happen at a certain time, but giving workers and businesses the tools to make it happen.
Prochaine question.
Right. J'ai déjà répondu en français.
I think I answered in French already. That was the previous question. It was almost the same. Go ahead. Émilie Bergeron, Canadian Press. By announcing so many measures, such comprehensive measures today, what are you saying to businesses? Are you saying that the tariff war might go on for some time? Be patient. And why did you wait until today to help the steel sector? First of all,
le processus de la restriction
the restructuring process of the Canadian economy will go on for some time. That's clear, I think, because as I've already said, this is a rupture. American economic policies have changed profoundly and deeply. There are negotiations that are ongoing. We will make gains in these negotiations. We will diversify our markets, that's a given, but the process will take time. So what we have to do now is to invest right now so that we can build our competitiveness. This is the reason why, to use your words, we're announcing broad initiatives, vast initiatives in terms of the aluminum sector, more specifically now. There's the large enterprise tariff facility that exists. This sector has access to that, and then now we have the Strategic Response Fund as well. In addition, the discussions are ongoing with the aluminum sector. The Minister of Industry, the Minister of Finance, and myself are talking to them regularly. So I think it's appropriate to put in place this measure now, and the amount is $5 billion, as you said yourself. That's appropriate also, I think. Why didn't you do before? Well, it's now time to do it, quite simply.
Prime Minister. Good morning, Minister Joly. Prime Minister, you and your office announced yesterday a willingness to support Ukraine with military scalable assistance, military assistance to support a lasting peace in the country. But now we've heard the Russian president reject such security assurances. He says that any troops, foreign troops in Ukraine would be a legitimate target. Does that change at all your stance that was announced yesterday?
Look, President Putin is the cause of this war. He has not yet come to terms with the need for peace. We need to maintain, through the coalition of the willing, other allies, the Ukrainian armed forces need to maintain maximum pressure. That pressure has several aspects. First, obviously the Ukrainian forces themselves and ensuring that they are appropriately armed for their valiant fight, and Canada has just reinforced that, as have other allies. Secondly, that pressure is economic. Sanctions. We have put in place sanctions on more than 3,000 individuals, tightening the oil price cap and other sanctions. The next wave of sanctions is being prepared amongst allies, and it will come, and these are having an effect on Russia's economy, and we need to keep there. The third aspect is to make clear that Ukraine will be supported when peace comes, when there is a cessation of hostility. First and foremost, that's the Ukrainian army, but yes, it will need to be backed up by robust and credible security guarantees. That's why Canada is in the coalition of the willing. And through part of that, Mr. Putin is the cause of this war. He's the reason for the killing. He is not going to dictate the terms of the peace.
Next question, Laura.
Morning, Prime Minister. Laura Stone, Globe and Mail. I wanted to ask about our story today on Tom Pitfield. I was wondering if you knew about his ties to the tobacco industry before our story, when you hired him in your office, if you have any moral qualms about his ties to the industry, given the push to stop smoking and vaping, and if he will recuse himself from any health discussions or debates in your office.
Well, the first thing is people in my office, as you know, and Canadians would expect, go through conflict of interest and ethics procedures, and appropriate screens are put in place, and they're followed. That's the case for Mr. Pitfield. That's the case for all the staff in my office. That's the first. The second, there's certain activities which are legal in this country, which I don't necessarily follow or approve of, but you know, that's people. We have tobacco industry in the country. We have people who smoke in this country. It is legal to buy cigarettes in this country. I make no judgment about that.
Thank you.
I can't hear you.
Will he be involved in any health discussions or policies?
Look, I don't know.
Next question, please.
Non-issue.
Good morning, Eric Viano, CH News. We cover Hamilton and Niagara region, which has a large number of foreign workers. Is your government planning on making changes to the temporary foreign worker program?
Look, I think the first thing I'll say is that what this government is committed to do, and we are putting in place the measures in order to do it. I'm going to give a specific example of some success here with respect to foreign workers in a moment. But our overall commitment, and let's put this in context, foreign workers are about 7% of the labor force, a little more than 7% of the labor force, and we've committed to get that number down to less than 5% by 2027. Okay. So that takes a comprehensive strategy, it's adjustment, and we're talking students, we're talking asylum seekers, temporary foreign workers, all classes, provincial nominee program workers, all these classes of workers. With respect to temporary foreign workers, they are less than 1% of the labor force. We're looking to adjust those levels and the composition of those workers, and one of the things that this government put in place was restrictions to reduce the flow of low-wage foreign workers, so those who are taking the lower-wage jobs in this country. And that flow is down 70% this year. I'll repeat that, 70% this year. So context is important, trajectory is important. We're acting, things are moving. Next question.
Thank you. We'll have time for one last question. Ira?
This is Iraq Chakra, Turkish Voice of Canada. Prime Minister, your mandate pledges to attract top global talent while returning overall immigration to sustainable levels. Yet recent data show an uptick in skilled immigrants and even citizens leaving Canada, citing housing and wage pressures, as you know. As you pursue new alliances and define strategic sectors, how will you prevent reverse migration from hollowing out the workforce those sectors need? And what concrete retention targets or measures are you setting to keep up talent here?
Okay. The first thing is, I view your question the following, and thank you for it. It's about having the best quality of life in the world in Canada. And there are a series of things that we're doing that's going to add to Canadian quality of life. I'm going to focus on two. We're in the Peel region. I'll focus on two that are issues here. There are issues elsewhere in the country. And the first is around crime and safety in our neighborhoods. This government is committed to reforming the criminal code to ensure that organized crime, gang crime, crime with handguns, home invasions, auto theft, that the individuals who participate in those crimes pay the price they should with consecutive sentencing, that they are not in a position where they commit a crime one day and they're arrested and then out on bail the next. So bail reform being at the heart of it. We're committed to having more officers at our border, 1,000 more border agents, more RCMP, committed to working more closely with the provinces. And I'll give you a specific example with respect to the last. We've been working with the Council of Federation, all the provinces, on bail reform. We will be legislating on that. We're proposing legislation, I should say, to the House on that next month. I met with Premier Ford this morning as part of an ongoing conversation about how we can address these issues, what the federal government needs to do on the criminal code. I agree with Premier Ford on these issues, and that's why we're moving on them. What the province and the municipality can do in terms of policing more effectively. So we're working very closely. That's one aspect of quality of life. Another aspect of quality of life is housing. In the next few weeks, we will announce the launch of Build Canada Homes as part of doubling the rate of housing starts in this country, including in this region, to help ensure people have homes, have the communities they wish, and help with that. I just want to point out that there are many factors that drive where people live, and where we are focused today, tomorrow, in the future, is on Canadians having the best quality of life possible. Yes, it starts with the economy and responding, meeting to the moment. That's what today's announcement is about, but it also goes to the fundamental of being safe in your community, owning your own home, being able to pay your rent, living a good life.
This puts an end to our press conferences.
Merci beaucoup. Thank you very much. Well, but there'll be a more comprehensive approach for climate competitiveness as part of our global industrial competitiveness strategy, and you'll see that in the coming weeks. That's the first point. So I want to put it into that context. The second is that we are
telling Canadians that the problems they're facing with increased affordability, increased prices on everything, difficulty buying gas, difficulty buying computer,